Welcome back to the RF Fitness Podcast, brought to you by rffitness.net, your source for online coaching built for and by busy grown-ups just like you who are on the quest for health and strength in everyday life. I am your host, Rob Finlayson, the certified older brother fitness coach, and I had a funny one, but I forgot what it was. Tired guy. I'm tired today. I've been up since 5 a.m. And I'm here with my co-host, my special co-host today.
Leslie Johnson, certified twin mom, garden geek, and part Druid.
And we're here with Leslie today because I want to talk about gardening specifically. Leslie, you have a background in urban farming, I think it is?
Yeah. So I grew up running wild through the woods. My mom was kind of Laura Ingalls Wilder. Cool. And then I've lived in the Twin Cities a long time. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to do something that was more hands-on, more physical, and I loved gardening. Found a job working for a company that helped install like organic raised bed gardens and helped teach people how to garden. Yeah. And then I was the store manager at a store in St. Paul called Plant Urban Farm Supply for almost 9 years. And so I learned about lots of like chicken keeping and sourdough and fermenting and all the other things connected with growing your own food. Yeah. And I took the Master Gardener's course. Awesome, so I'm not technically a certified Master Gardener, so I didn't add that in. Well, but I took the pro side of it. So you don't have to do this is basically the same thing. You just don't have the volunteer hours. Yeah. So for sure. Yeah, so I've done some of that stuff.
Cool, which is all stuff that I feel like right now, just kind of like where we're at with like, at least on my algorithm, my social media is very like gardening and sourdough. And it's like, especially after the pandemic, I feel like everyone got really into sourdough, really into gardening.
Oh yeah, we were crazy. It was bad. It was bananas. And chicken keeping.
And chickens
and with egg prices going up, chickens.
Yeah, dude. So we got, because you keep chickens, you were the first person I knew in real life who kept chickens in the backyard.
And now Rachel does. Shout out to Rachel, the OG co-host.
That's, the OG co-host, my younger sister, Rachel. And I've told this story before, but when we bought the house, we were like signing the thing for it, and Mo looks at me and he's like, we're not going to be the people who have chickens. I was like, I never brought it up before, ever. I had never even crossed my mind until she said, we're not going to do that. And then I was like, I kind of want chickens.
And it's a little more work than cats, less work than dogs. And they mostly just do their own chickeny thing. Yeah. They eat your food scraps. We have not had Japanese beetles the last summer. Really? They are great at bug and pest control.
Sure. Because we have a huge problem with box elder bugs.
Oh yeah, they'll eat all that stuff.
Oh dude, that's awesome. Yeah. Because we hate those guys.
Yeah.
Dope, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I wanted to bring you in today to talk about was like some of that gardening stuff, get some like actionable tips and tricks and intel for the people at home, because right now, this time of year, it's like springtime. Mother's Day is sort of like the unofficial, like put things in the ground kind of date. And, I got to work in my garden. So I figure why not bring the expert in?
Awesome. Oh, thanks. Fun. Yeah. And I first met you, I was trying to think of the date. I had twins in 2016. Okay. And I think I started the Y in 2017.
I was just saying, I think they were about a year old.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had a very physical job where at the farm store, I unloaded a literal ton of chicken feed every Wednesday. Yeah. And during twin pregnancy, I couldn't lift more than 10 pounds for 6 or 7 months. So I felt like I lost so much strength, but now I have to carry these twin babies around. Yeah. And then going back to work and just feeling wimpy. And I joined the Y. And they're like, do you want your free session with a personal trainer? I was like, sure, I have zero clue what I'm doing. Like, my stepdad was a bodybuilder. And so I grew up with him lifting weights.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah, his PR for bench press was 450. Damn. That's beefcake.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, so I grew up around that, but it was very male-centric, very weight-focused, very just a gym with bro dudes and weights. Sure. And there wasn't anything else in a little tiny hometown gym. And so I grew up with that as sort of a fitness, but it wasn't inclusive. And so I was like, I don't know. I didn't feel uncomfortable trying to use the equipment, but I was like, I know nothing. I'm going to hurt I'm old now. Like, I'm an older parent. I'm 45 next month. So I'm not necessarily, a typical client. Maybe. I mean, maybe I am. But
pretty typical, yeah.
Yeah. But so I'm like, okay, how do I get some strength back fast? Yeah. And in a way that I'm not going to hurt myself. And there's childcare, and I can get some time into myself. So like, okay, here's your personal trainer. And you're like, hey, what's your experience? I'm like, well, I'm doing this like walk to Mordor challenge with my sister. Yeah. And you instantly were like, that's my jam. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. I'm like somebody who's like a little bit of a nerd. Doesn't mind the chubby mom demographic. And like, show me how to use these things. And it was really fun. And so also too, you did a boxing class, and I had some postpartum rage I was figuring out, and I feel so bad that I might have scared some of the other girls in that class because I was there to hurt people.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone else was.
I'm gonna taste it. I'm
So I felt bad. Like, I don't think that they're here for this.
They weren't ready for the smoke.
Yeah.
For them hands.
But it was just so great because, like, you have always met me where I'm at. Like, so that was the first time we met up.
Yeah.
We were doing that, boxing classes. I was learning kettlebell things a little bit with you. Yeah. And then pandemic things happened. And so the Y closed down. And then thanks to Instagram algorithms, I found your Instagram, your 20 Athletics Instagram. And I was like, and I had just left my job. I took a leave of absence, so I don't have that physicality. I was on my feet all day, lifting all day, organizing plants all day.
Yeah.
I'm like, I really need a way to kind of keep fitness in my life outside of my job because I'm no longer doing that.
Right.
And so I'm like, I'm going to sign up for this first dojo group of whatever. I have no clue what I'm doing, but Rob was great. And then I broke my ankle. Right before that started.
That was really terrible timing.
And I was like,
not doing a workout.
Yes. And so I was like, so you've done such a great job of always meeting me where I'm at. Because I was like, okay, I broke my ankle. This is lame, but I don't want to let anything be an excuse. Because like, there's always a reason to not work out. There's always a reason. Anything can be an obstacle. Like I think you said to Rachel before, like there's always going to be a reason not to do something. And also like maintaining is gaining, especially as you're getting older. Yeah. So I thought, okay, I'm like, so we had our first meeting for our group and I'm like, well, I signed up, but I broke my ankle. And you were like, okay, so how do we pivot?
Yes.
And it was like, so.
Not on that ankle.
Yes, right? So then you're like, let's focus on food. Let's focus on other obstacles like time and prioritizing yourself and like making a schedule. And doing things that didn't involve jumping because there's lots of stuff. And so it was just really awesome. And also you've said something to me too, something is better than nothing. Yeah. Like being intentional, even if you just do the warm up in the first part of a workout. Like if you 10 minutes of something is better than 0 minutes of anything. So I thought, that's been super helpful. Yeah. And that's just really helped me with riding the wave of aging and parenting and injuries because since then, I've kind of come and gone with Quest groups. Yeah. And I've had 2 fairly major surgeries where I, again, also couldn't lift for 6 months. So, again, it was like, okay, let's pivot and work on these things. So, also in the videos you've sent me, there's been women, too. Because for kettlebells, I'm a bustier person, for those who can't see me. And all these videos are of men, and they want you to cinch this up really close. And I'm like, I'm smashing myself. Yeah. And I remember sending you a video of like, okay, this is kind of like,
what are we doing?
Client moment. I'm smashing my chest. How do I not do that? Because all these videos say to bring it in here. And you sent me this awesome video back that was like, not everyone is busty, and these are all dudes. And I'm your trainer, so don't listen to anyone else. I'm the one in charge, and this is how you should do it, and you won't hurt yourself, and don't listen to them. And I was like, yes.
Hooray!
So just like, you've always been so inclusive, and I just super appreciate that. So shout out to Rob.
Shout out to me.
Yeah, it's been several years of lots of different weird injuries and limitations.
It's been several years, hasn't it?
And and I think too, like if I hadn't been just maintaining, I would have definitely gained. Like if I hadn't had that inspiration and that extra like check-in or those touch points of like, hey, what's going on? How's your things? Here's a Quest group. Are you interested? Yeah. Yeah, actually, I should do this. Thanks for the email because that sounds great. And it's been awesome.
I appreciate that, Leslie. Thank you. Yeah, I gotta say too, like having worked with you for so long, many of our calls are some of the best, most insightful conversations that I've had with clients. Sorry, other clients who are listening to this right now. I also have insightful conversations with the rest of you, but the ones I have with Leslie usually wind up like I come up with like I get so much wisdom out of talking with you and all this stuff, and a lot of the lessons that I pull out that we learn together on these calls and these conversations are things that I can bring and then apply and show to other clients and helps them too.
Yeah, like how can we shift and how can we or I try this doesn't work for my lifestyle, or like with Rachel, I really want to keep my favorite coffee drink. Great, work around that. Yeah, what's your non-negotiables and realizing
the big one that I've been using is the toss your potions thing.
Yes, I have a gamer husband and I know something about that. I'm like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, and I just brought that up I think on the last episode or two. And then someone reached out to me and they were saying like, hey, like, you were talking about this toss your potions thing with your client. And she was like, that made a difference in this thing I was doing as I was listening to the podcast. Yes. Yeah. And they like changed the behavior. Yes. Which is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. It was so helpful to like, sorry, I didn't interrupt you. To like think of it that way, to be like, this isn't serving me. Like this can go, and not feeling the obligation to use things or keep things. And one thing too is I was always so worried about food waste, being a granola crunch garden person.
Yeah.
And then I was like, how can I like not eat that part of a peanut butter and jelly because I don't want to waste it because I'm an 80s kid who grew up with nothing. So you don't want to waste anything.
Yeah.
Like compost, just take it to your compost place. And we just started a compost pickup at our neighborhood finally.
Did you?
The city in Crystal, yeah, they finally have organics pickup. So, but that really helped too. Yeah. Like it really helped motivate me to find a solution for that. Like get rid of those health potions. I'm like, okay, stop doing this behavior. Just stop. Fine. If this is what's important, there's other options to help compost and not waste that. And it genuinely was like, okay.
And now you can feed it to your chickens.
Yes, now I can feed it to my chickens. They just had some leftover sad grapes and macaroni and cheese.
Do they eat mac and cheese?
Oh yeah, they love this. Really?
Stuff. That's crazy.
They'll even eat leftover dino nugs, which is a little cannibalistic.
I was saying they eat meat and stuff too, don't they?
They're omnivores, so
that's crazy.
People are sometimes worried about like mice and stuff. Yeah. They will eat a mouse. Like if there's YouTube videos of a chicken just gulping down a mouse.
What?
They'll eat them.
It's surprising. I guess they are. Olivia, resident dino expert, will tell you that they're related to the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah.
They're basically little dinosaurs.
Yeah, right now I have 3 baby chicks at my house, and they're almost a month old, and they look like teenage dinosaurs. Really? It's that phase where their new feathers are coming in. And their wings are too big for their bodies. And it's so fascinating. But they're super helpful for all that kind of stuff, too.
That's great.
Yeah, and then you know where your eggs are coming from, and you know what's in their food, and you know that they're not getting hormones, and you know that they're laying in their natural cycle, and they're being well taken care of.
Like forced to produce this crazy.
It connects great to gardening too, because then right now I let them out, and they'll dig through all the gardens, and they're eating all those grubs that are starting to come up, like Japanese beetles and all kinds of other bugs and things, and we've had way less issues with stuff like that, and they help turn the soil for you.
Well, let's segue into the gardening stuff from that, because that's a really good point to take up on there. Yeah. So, like I said, I have a garden that I've been working on, much to Mo's chagrin, for the past several years.
I have a note about that too. So I know Mo is not a fan of the look of cinder blocks. I think you mentioned that in an old podcast. Yes. And shout out to Mo, but I'm also sorry to say that cinder blocks are a great choice.
Validated.
Because I know it's not the best look, but they look way better than rotting wood. I think. Yeah. And they're way more sustainable. They're a much cheaper, affordable way for someone to build a garden bed. Also, the sun heats the stone. Yeah. And it can warm it up. So you can plant in it a little sooner, too. So if you're wanting to plant, like right now, like last week for Earth Day with my kids' school garden, we planted all kinds of cool weather plants. So like peas, radishes, lettuce, all that stuff you can plant now. Yeah. And so your soil maybe was warmer a few weeks sooner because... it's up off the ground. It's warmed by the cinder blocks. Yeah. They last a lot longer. They're not going to break down. Yeah, they're going to be there forever. Last year, I spent half my gardening season just rebuilding garden beds that had broken down. Really? From 7 years ago. And otherwise, if you want them to be super long lasting, you don't, for a food garden, you don't want to use treated lumber because those chemicals will seep into your food stuff. Yep. And then cedar is really expensive, especially now with tariffs. A lot of our cedar comes from Canada. A lot of our building supplies comes from Canada. And peat moss and things like that come from Canada. So you're going to want to find more local, sustainable things. And also, kind of like with fitness and D&D, you don't need a ton of equipment. You don't have to go buy the fanciest trending thing. You don't have to. You can, and you can enhance your stuff as you want, but you don't have to start out with the fanciest looking thing. Yeah. And also the nice thing with cinder blocks is they're easy to move. So a big mistake that first-time gardeners do is they put their garden bed in where they think it's going to look the best, visibly to neighbors and other things, but that's not necessarily the best place for where things are going to grow. Right. So one of my first notes was put it in make sure you put it in a super sunny spot. Yeah. Especially if you're wanting things that fruit and flower. So like greens and stuff can tolerate more shade, like lettuce and anything like that. But anything that fruits and then makes flowers and then makes fruit, you need to put it in the sunniest spot possible. So you're talking about like tomatoes, peas, peppers, all that stuff. All that stuff. Potatoes even, those flower too. Oh yeah, they do. Yeah. And so like minimum 6 to 8 hours. But the more sun, the more flowers, the more fruit. So if you want to grow specifically like fruit, like berries, trees and things like that, the more sun, the better. Like my blackberry sprig hasn't done anything in 8 years. Maybe if it's in a shady spot. It never gets sun. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Okay. And so if you move it to a sunnier spot, and also choose sometimes just trimming trees. that helps because you put a garden in a sunny-ish spot, and then a couple years later, those trees have grown.
Those greedy trees.
Yeah, there's really awesome resources. You don't have to buy a ton of equipment. There's the Minnesota Tool Library. Also, some actual libraries have community gardens. All have resources you can borrow and rent. So you can just borrow a pole saw and just shoot with your arm strength. It's actually a really great workout.
It is.
Too, so that gardening is fitness because you're doing these movements you wouldn't always normally do.
If someone were to look for that stuff online, like what would they Google? Like
you'd Google the Minnesota Tool Library. There's one in Northeast.
Yeah.
And not the Northrop King building, but very near there. And then there's one in St. Paul. And I know the one in St. Paul has a broad fork, which is kind of like a body tiller, like before actual rotary tillers were made.
Yeah.
It's better for your soil health and soil structure. Also, don't call soil dirt.
No.
That's a whole other podcast.
Okay. That's a whole other rant.
Soil is a living organism full of magic. Yes. Dirt is just fucking garbage, and it's not what food grows in. So that's a whole other thing. Don't call it dirt, it's soil.
Dirt.
Yeah. So sun is one of the most important, one of the biggest fails first-time gardeners do. Another thing that I thought was interesting to bring up before we get into like mega gardening tips was victory gardens, because you mentioned in the email.
That's one of the things.
And one of the cool things is I think there's only 2 original victory gardens in the entire United States that have been operated kind of continuously.
Oh, wow.
And one is here in Minneapolis.
What?
So the Dowling Community Garden in South Minneapolis, kind of near the Riverview Theater.
Sure.
Right near the river, off one of the river roads.
That's
the Dowling
so cool.
Community, it's by an elementary school. So the Dowling Community Garden was built, and
So can you tell us a little bit about what a victory garden is?
Yeah, so in 1942, with all the world wars and things happening, Victory Garden started because they wanted to make sure there was enough food to send to the soldiers fighting overseas.
Sure.
And so there was a whole push for people to grow their own food. And there was a lot of amazing resources put out then. Like you can Google Victory Gardens resources.
Yeah.
And it shows all these great tips on what to do to make a home garden. And then they also had like meatless Mondays, wheatless Wednesdays to try to help preserve resources.
Sure.
And I think at one point, the statistic was by like 1944, there was 20 million victory gardens in the United States. And the country grew 40% of their fresh fruit and veg by themselves in their home gardens.
That's incredible.
So it's super possible.
Yeah.
And you don't have to know a ton about it to start necessarily. Sure. But yeah, so that was really cool. 20 million victory gardens. And then it was, really just to help us be sustainable as a country, to not have to rely on any other resources. And we weren't doing as much exports and imports then. Yeah. And so a lot of our food...
There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, a lot of our stuff was from here. And so with everything going on politically and all the tariffs and a lot of our food...
That's where I first learned about what the Victory Garden was on my algo. Yeah, it was like, hey, here's what a Victory Garden was. We need to start doing this again because we're not going to have access to fruit.
Yeah, or it's going to be astronomically expensive.
Yes. Yeah.
And so a lot of the super easy things that you can grow yourself don't even have to be annual vegetables. Like things that are perennial means that they come back every year. So asparagus comes up in the spring and then it's kind of done. It turns into this cute little frond. Like you harvest it for a while and then it turns into this really cute ornamental looking frond. So it's really great for front yards and for peels. You can cut them down later.
Like a hosta.
Interesting. Kind of, but like they're really frondy. They're really tall and fuzzy. It's really cute. Ferny looking almost. And then other perennials would be like strawberries, any kind of berries, fruit trees. And there are dwarf fruit trees. Like I have a little tiny plum tree. And they take several years to kind of really get going. But
you have a cherry tree too.
Our cherry tree. And it took maybe like 5 years to really get a lot from the cherry tree. And the plum tree last year was the first time we had this huge bumper crop. Like I'd almost given up on it. But there's a lot of perennial fruit things that are really beautiful, like gooseberries and choke cherries and things you can make jam out of that are local native plants to our area.
Sure.
Because guess what? Kentucky bluegrass grass that's in our lawns isn't meant to be here. No. And there's a lot of really beautiful like low-mo, no-mo options for that. And a lot of it can include foodstuffs. Strawberries are really low growing. Yeah. Elderberries, blueberries. Yeah. Some things you do need to fence because bunnies.
I was going to say, every time I've tried strawberries, rabbits eat them right away. So I got to figure something else out.
Yeah, some kind of a fencing or something. But the other thing that could be a whole separate podcast is, I don't know, it might be an unpopular opinion, but don't bag your leaves. In the fall.
I'll read it again.
No, don't rake your lawn. Like, so there's many, many reasons to not rake your lawn. Okay. Number one, people rake their leaves and take away all this awesome natural fertilizer, nitrogen, and then you add in fertilizers later on.
What are we doing?
That just leak into our water systems and contaminate our water and kill our fish and all sorts of other interconnected relationships.
I've had this exact rant so many times.
Yes, it could be a whole separate podcast.
Yeah.
But so all the plant matter, like just mow it. Just mulch it and mow it. Like obviously it's super fun to rake leaves and have leaf piles with your kids.
How fun is the word I want to use?
Stuff. Well, I mean, it's fun for them to jump into leaf piles. Yeah. But also you can go to a farm and do that in a corn pit and check that fall box.
Kids like a corn pit,
Yeah, so leave your leaves for many reasons, but one, it helps feed your yard. It adds some biomass. You can use it in your garden. It's really great. Leaf mold is people buy bags of leaf compost, and it's just leaves
sitting in a gold mine. Trebek.
So and then also too, like we have the rusty patch bumblebee is an endangered bee. It's in Minnesota, and they burrow under the ground under piles of leaves. Really? And so you're probably killing lots of bees and bugs, but also there's like tons of moths and butterflies and things you might not necessarily recognize, like the standard chrysalis. But there's so many native bees there's hundreds of native bees. They're teeny tiny. They don't sting. They're solitary bees. That's a whole separate podcast too, probably like mason bees. The Bee Lab here at the U has awesome, cool resources. Lots of cool stuff on.
What's the Bee Lab?
Take a kid there. So the U of M, the University of Minnesota, has one of the nation's best, like Marla Spivak. She just retired. I'm pushing my nerd glasses. She's got a huge amount of research on like bees and native bees and bee lawns. So like low grow, no mow resources to help feed bees. Because as much as people hate dandelions, it's some of the first sources of food for bees. And most of our food, people assume is pollinated by honeybees, but it's actually teeny tiny native bees that pollinate most of our food that grow here in Minnesota. Like honeybees are part of it, but there's hundreds of tiny native bees, leafcutter bees, mason bees that do a lot of that work, and you don't notice them. You think they look like a tiny little fly or something. Really? So if you leave the leaves, it's actually way better for all the pollinators and insects that help.
So there's some good bugs out there.
There's a ton of good bugs out there. Ladybugs eat aphids and things like that. There's lots of great bugs. And so leaving the leaves helps. Also, too, like people want to clean up their yards and make everything pristine in the fall. And also, if you leave those stems, leave those stems from the hostas or leave the stems from your raspberry canes, those are bees that nest in those kind of reeds. And so a lot of people right now, I see them doing garden cleanup, and I'm like, no, you're killing all the baby bees. Because you want to leave that stuff until it's consistently above 50 degrees at night. So consistently, so it's still like
that'll be a while out. Yeah,
it's still like a week or two out. Like obviously, like clean up stuff that if you're going to be planting peas or some spring veggies and you need to clean up something to do that, obviously do that.
Sure.
But you left all that shit sit all fucking winter, all fall, all winter. It sat the whole time. You didn't get time to deal with it.
Yeah.
What's leaving it for 3 more weeks
going to do?
It's a huge deal. Just leave it. Leave the leaves. Leave your yard debris.
Yeah.
Wait until, because it will all just break down. You can home compost a lot of stuff too. But...
So so we could make the argument that my amount of yard care that I do, where I don't touch the garden after, I don't pull anything out.
Yeah.
I rarely mow.
Yeah.
I hate raking leaves. I try to do it as little as possible. I don't cut back dead things. I'm being a force for good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're helping our local bug and bee population try to come back.
Can you say that again on the microphone for my wife?
Providing habitat for endangered species and then bugs and bees that are super beneficial to our garden and our food systems. But also the Bee Lab had that. Yeah, you can Google the Minnesota U of M Bee Lab. They have all kinds of resources about it, especially about native bees. They're so cool. You can get them to come to your kid's school.
Dude, that'd be
Also, one thing I want to shout out, especially for beginner gardeners, is the University of Minnesota has the U of M extension. If you Google specifically University of Minnesota extension yard and garden, that website is amazing. Anytime I had weird customer questions that I was stumped on, anytime someone brought me a leaf and is like, what's this leaf, what's this dead bug, what is this thing, you can look it up in their website. They have amazing beginner gardening tips. They have, if you wanted to grow blueberries, how do I do that? They have amazing videos and resources and tons and tons and tons of awesome stuff. Or if you're looking to plant certain things in your yard, should I plant a white pine? No, don't fucking do that. Anyway, there's other trees that are better for Minnesota. But they have awesome recommendations of all these things. They're like, what's happening with my plant?
Yeah.
They have a whole section based off that. Is it a fungus? Is it what's a natural or organic way to help remedy that? Their website is an invaluable resource. So University of Minnesota Extension Yard and Garden. Cool. If you just Google that, that's one of the best resources ever because it's specifically for our area. Talks about all kinds of great stuff that's local for here. Yeah. And it just keeps growing. It's so helpful. And the B Lab stuff has some really cool resources too. Super neat. But so you don't have to know a ton to start because it's sort of like D&D. And it's sort of like fitness. It's like you might not know the acronyms. You might not always know the best thing, but you have to start somewhere. Yeah. But you don't want to start like all in, like I'm going to buy this home gym equipment or I'm going to buy all the monster manual and then you're never going to touch it again, right? You're realizing like I don't want to DM. This is a lot of fucking work. Right. But I want all the shiny dice. Okay. I mean, that's the fun part. Yeah. That's the fun part. Or like with gym stuff, people get excited and they're like, I'm going to buy all these things, and then it becomes a clothes hanger. Or the same with gardens. Like, don't make your whole yard a gigantic garden bed and then realize that you hate it, or you're not actually going to use that much food, or it's just more work than you want to put in right now because you have that energy in the spring, but come the fall when school's starting and everything else. So start small, sort of like with D&D and fitness. Just start at a very simple beginning. You can always expand your knowledge. You can always make your garden bigger. You can always add to your home gym. Like, you can always take those pieces and keep growing what you're doing without overwhelming yourself. Because if you overload yourself, then you're going to be like, this isn't for me. This is too much. Totally. So you're going to burn yourself out.
Like anything else. Yeah.
So just like starting small. So like, the biggest tips for gardening is like put your garden in the sunniest spot. Yeah. Not the place you think is going to look the cutest. That's not going to generally be the successful spot. Right. And think of your front yard too. There's a lot of ways to integrate things into your front yard that are like herbs are usually really beautiful. Perennial fruit is usually really beautiful looking. Yeah. And so it has that curb appeal people want, but you're still growing food and you're interspersing it into your other perennial things. You can mix it in. It doesn't have to be just one little spot that's just your food. You can mix it in
it can go all over
on your sunniest spot. And I think people sometimes think of it has to be in rows and it has to whatever. But so making sure you have plenty of sun. Oh, the other thing I don't want to forget to add is maybe you don't have a home garden space. You can grow a ton of food indoors too with limited stuff. Like you can grow edible mushrooms of the oyster mushrooms, and there's really cool kits that you can get and you can grow them on your countertop. Yeah. And that's just really fun.
I had one of those kits and then I let it, I fucked it up. I fucked up growing mushrooms.
They take a lot of water.
Well, I let it sit on my counter for probably 6 or 7 years before I opened it, and I think it just died or something. Oh, right. I opened it up. Just got pooped out. And I was like, it's mushrooms. They can last forever, whatever. But apparently
maybe. I mean, if you put it in your yard, they might still grow.
I mean, maybe I should. Yeah.
But there's a really great place in Wisconsin called Field and Forest. So if you go to their website, fieldandforest.net, you can get big kits. That come, and they're bigger bricks, so they make more, and they're also easier than the little tiny countertop kit. They're like, I mean, they're not huge, but they're a little bigger than the small little boxes you can find. And then they also have a lot of cool resources on how to put mushrooms in your garden, in your yard. Because if you have a really shady yard, that's something you can grow. And then also indoors, you can grow microgreens.
Totally.
So the coolest thing, the coolest thing about microgreens is they're so nutrient dense because they have everything they need to grow in that little seed. Yeah. And then it sprouts out. So for people who are really wanting to add to your soup or your salad or whatever.
And super tasty.
Yeah, it's super tasty. Or there's also community garden plots too. So if you don't have your own garden space or a yard that you want to garden in, you can get a community garden spot.
And do you reserve those? Do you pay a fee for that?
There's usually an annual fee. It just varies depending on where you are. Sure. But another act of awesome resistance, as gardening as rebellion is, you can turn your community garden or your vacant lots near you into a community garden. Sure. There's a lot of cool resources. You contact your county. I think there's sometimes they're trying to encourage people to do that. So there's some work, but there's sometimes free resources. Like sometimes the city has compost or mulch or different stuff that they can help add to that. A lot of times there's other gardeners, helps you meet your neighbors. So that's kind of like your fitness is rebellion. Yeah, gardening is rebellion. Like you can take over those vacant lots and turn them into something that produces community and food and beautify your neighborhood.
What's your thought on like guerrilla gardening?
I super love that shit.
Yeah.
Dude, I make seed bombs and then I constantly toss
That's
it
so
in.
dope, dude. Yeah.
As I'm driving on the highway to be like, there could be some sunflowers here, milkweed, because it just sort of helps. Yeah, and especially when you're doing stuff that's like native to our area. Like it's not stuff that's going to become a nuisance or a pest or a problem. Okay. Yeah. Like it's like things that will help our pollinators. Like, yeah.
Have you seen, because I learn about all this stuff from my social media stuff. Yeah. I'm a millennial. That's where I learn anything anymore. Yeah. But have you seen, I've seen some videos of a dude doing really interesting like urban foraging. Yes. Urban food. Because his thing is that like a lot of cities will put like food crops in like their like planters, like out from like banks and shit.
Yeah, it's like kale and all kinds of like
this is just like potatoes, and he'll just like dig things up, and the cops will be like, "What are you doing?" Dude's like, "Oh, I gotta go." It's like
because like sweet potato vines are really pretty in planters, and then they actually grow sweet potatoes.
Like, technically, you're stealing city property, but they're just gonna let it rot in the.
There's also cool guerrilla gardeners who graft fruit trees onto other trees. So you can do tree grafting, which is also really cool, and the Arboretum has workshops on it. And you can splice into a tree and put a fruit tree branch into it and bandage it up, and then it will produce fruit off of that branch. So there's guerrilla gardeners who do that in cities, and that's super cool. Neat. Yes, right? And so there's so many different ways that you can kind of do that. I love guerrilla gardening.
That's dope. Yeah. Gardening is very punk.
Yeah, it's very punk rock.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I know you have a background punk rock.
Yes, I super love punk rocks. Yes, I used to do the photography, and I was at the 400 bar a lot. Dope. Photos and stuff. Yeah, so it's also why I don't always hear the best, despite having worn earplugs. Wear your earplugs, kids. So, yeah, there's so many cool ways that you can kind of find ways to find food. And there's also places that forage, and like the Urban Forage Winery, that's here in Minneapolis. That's all stuff that they've foraged, or people who harvest their stuff that they're not going to use. Really? And there's a really amazing Instagram woman. Her handle is Black Forager.
Yes, I love her.
She's amazing. All the things of like, and she was also like, okay, do these things and don't die. Like she's so knowledgeable. She's so interesting.
She's such a ray of sunshine too.
Yes, and she's so amazing. So if you're interested in any kind of foraging stuff too, check
out Black her
Forager.
Stuff out.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of years ago, at the gym that I work still at, we did like a coach's retreat for a weekend. We did like an Airbnb at some cabin up north, wherever, I forget exactly where. One of the goals I said to people there, because they were talking about like before the trip, like what do people want to do on this trip? What are we gonna do? Because we're gonna get some beers and hang out and like do the beach and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm gonna take a gummies, and I'm not gonna be normal until I get back home again. and I wasn't, chill. And it was great. But then I got out of the car and I was wearing my hooded poncho. Yeah. We got there first, and I was like, "Whoa! Like there's broadleaf plantain down here. Yeah. We have yarrow over here. It's like, oh guys, check it out, like a wood sorrel." And I was like, eating it off of the lawn, and then my coworkers drive up and they see me just like hide on my fucking skull wearing a poncho eating weeds, and like, what is wrong with Rob?
That's amazing.
People can make fun of me for it to this day. It's like, oh, don't worry, if you guys get hungry, Rob can point out something for you to
That's
eat.
awesome. But yeah, plantain and like sorrel, like I think we talked about that. I sent pictures, I think. Yeah. I was like, yeah, wood sorrel is like a weed, but you can totally eat it. It has that sort of peppery kind of taste. It's super.
I taught Olivia about it.
That's awesome.
She thinks it's the deliciousest thing ever.
Yes, right? And you're like, yes. Oh, that's the other cool thing with gardening and kids is when they're planting it and they're helping grow it, they're way more likely to try it and way more likely to eat it. And there's really cool varieties that are like purple green beans, atomic red carrots, because carrots come in like purple, yellow, orange, white, like so many different colors. And so gardening with kids that way is a great way for them, like especially if they have like you've talked about picky eaters, of like trying to get kids to try different stuff. Like this is your garden. Like my kids each have a little spot and they do whatever the fuck they want. If it grows, cool. If not, whatever. One ended up as sort of a sandbox transplant with fairy garden stuff and their little flowers. Amazing. Yeah. But it's theirs, and it teaches them to care for the earth. It teaches them what plants need to grow. They get way more interested in trying different things because they grew it and it's theirs. And then all of a sudden it tastes so much better than whatever else. Yeah. That's just the super interesting thing. Yeah. With kids.
That's radical. So with teaching kids and being someone who maybe doesn't have a ton of time and resources, like I think I just talked about in my last episode, but like there's a lot of people who say like they're not a creative person, but like everything you do is like a sort of self-expression. Like I think there's a lot of people who would say like I'm not a gardener, I don't have a green thumb. You know, I can't keep a cactus alive in my house.
Right.
But they probably have a desire to grow their own food, especially right now. Like, what would you say is a good starting spot?
Number one, I have killed thousands of plants. I have killed thousands of plants. Okay. Like, the cool thing with, like, again, fitness and gardening, D&D, it's a safe place to fail. It's a safe place to try new things. It's a safe place to experiment. It's a safe place to fail.
I love that.
Because with gardening, number one, no matter what happens, you're going to learn something. You're going to be outside, probably, and you're going to grow something beautiful. It might not be what you wanted it to grow or how you wanted it to grow, but a weed is technically only a weed if it's something growing where you don't want it to be. So it could be an amazing plant, but you don't want it there. It's a weed because it's a nuisance. So, you know, don't be afraid to fail. Like last year, people were complimenting the school garden that I've helped with the kids. Yeah. They had no idea that I had 12 to 15 squash plants that legit just died. The sprinklers were accidentally on for 3 hours instead of 30 minutes for the school grounds crew. And that very significantly impacted the garden. And all of our squash got fungus and died. But nobody knew because I didn't tell them. I just pulled out the evidence. It still looked beautiful. And then you just learned, like, something weird's happening with the water. And then you're asked, oh, okay. So you don't have to have a green thumb. And growing indoors is way harder than growing outside, I think.
Really?
Yeah, because most places inside, like, and especially with our winters, most plants that you want to fruit and flower or grow really well need a lot of sunlight. Cactuses live in the desert where they're outside in the sun for 18 hours a day.
Right.
That's not your living room in Minnesota, especially in January.
Yeah.
So, of course it died. You know, you'd have to add supplemental light. You'd have to add other stuff you're going to have to do if you want certain things to grow.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of like a kid. You're giving it what it needs to thrive. But you're looking up like, okay, what is this plant? What does it need to be best? I might have to get a little light and turn it on a timer for 12 hours a day. Yeah. And then you'll get beautiful orchids or whatever. Like, so you don't have to have a green thumb. You don't have to necessarily know what you're doing. And so one of the other things that people do, and they make this is a very common mistake, is planting things too closely. So like, it's going to look like when you first plant a garden based on the spacing recommended on the packaging or the plant tag or plant label or whatever, it's going to look naked. There's going to be like a foot in between tomato plants. Yeah. It's going to be like this. There's going to be seeds you can't see waiting to grow. And it's going to look like a dirt pit for like maybe almost a month. Okay. Before stuff starts. But if you plant things in too closely, then that's when you start to get issues with fungus and pests, and they're not going to thrive because also underneath the ground, you're not seeing what's happening. Right. Your food, your plants use up so much nutrients. And so they're competing then. So the part of the reason they space things is you want enough sunlight, but also enough underneath the ground room for their roots to reach.
In the soil
to get the nutrients they need.
Not the dirt.
Not the dirt, yes. Sometimes it's easier if you're like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Yeah, so you're going to want to make sure you follow those plans. Because I've made that mistake. I still make that mistake because I want to grow all the things and I want to fit all the things in. But if you cram everything in, then it's harder to find the weeds. It's harder to, like, things get crazy, and then all of a sudden it's exploded, and then they're like, oh my God, this looks like a giant train wreck. So making sure you space things appropriately. Yeah. And there's really great resources like Square Foot Gardening. Yeah, I have a book. Yep. And that's just great for spacing. Like, following those spacings is great because it kind of maximizes a small space without overcrowding the plant's needs.
Yeah. So here's something, when I grow in my gardens, I hate weeding. How important is weeding? Do you have to do it all the time?
No, it depends. Like, that's one benefit to building a brand new garden, but like a raised bed, is because the soil you're putting in is generally free of weeds and pests and things like that. So when you're building a garden bed, and like, I think in your email you'd wondered about like how okay is the city compost kind of stuff. Yeah. You know, most of that stuff at the is compost at a facility that has to reach a certain temperature to kill off a lot of stuff. Oh, really? That being said, you're probably going to get some weird weeds. You might get some stuff, you know, but you can always do filling your garden bed, like depending on the height of your garden bed, the bottom of it, you can put in like sticks.
That's what I do with all mine. Yeah.
All kinds, and lay down, and you don't have to, and don't use the cloth weed barriers. No? Like, if you're building a brand new garden from scratch, say you've got like a 4-foot by 8-foot garden bed. Okay, mow your lawn or scalp it with a weed whacker is probably the best word. So as short as you can, and pull out any of the biggest, most problematic weeds. Yeah. And then lay down several layers of cardboard. Peel off the tape, things that won't biodegrade. Yeah, yeah. put down many layers of cardboard that will all break down within the first year. Water can go through it, but it helps prevent some of those weeds from getting sunlight and germinating. Toss a bunch of leaves in, logs and sticks.
Yep. So it's like yard waste.
A bunch of yard waste. If you have old garden dirt that you want to just fill in or stuff from pots, put that all on the bottom. It helps fill it in.
Yeah.
And then as that other stuff breaks down, bugs will come in and that helps feed your plants. The plant matter breaking down helps feed your plants.
Yeah.
And then put in like the city compost on top.
Oh, sure.
And that main layer, the first couple inches, and then the very top like inch or two, then put in your nice bought, purchased, bagged garden raised beds.
So just like an inch or two of the top.
Yeah, because then you have like some nicer stuff up top, and then you're ready to go. And then every year, just add in some compost, whether it's bag compost or city compost. And people are always worried about like what kind of compost, because there's like mushroom compost or all these different. Some of everything.
Sure.
Some of every little of everything. Like what's on sale? What's a good price? What's
it kind of doesn't really matter affordable. A whole lot. Or?
No, as long as you're adding organic matter in.
Yeah.
That helps loosen your soil and like peat moss and coconut coir. Sometimes people add that when their dirt is just fucking dirt and it's just mud and clay and super. They're using that to loosen stuff up. You can do that with leaves. If your soil is super compacted and clay.
Yeah.
Turn in some leaves. That's really, you're just adding organic matter to make it looser. And over time, it will become much better.
So loosening it up, you want a little bit of like a shaky soil, not too compacted.
Not too compacted. So that's why people do raised beds too, because then you're not walking on it. Because if you smush something down, the dirt's really hard. It's going to take a lot of effort for that tiny baby seed to pop out of that smashed soil.
Yeah. Yep. Because that's something that I had kind of learned the hard part. Because I don't know if you call it like common knowledge, not common knowledge, whatever. Like common sense says to like pack it down, but it sounds like you want to just kind of like let it chill in there.
Just a little bit so the wind doesn't blow it away. Yeah, like when I was planting with kids at the school garden, we drop it, pinch it, and pat it really gently to put it in. Because the other thing that's interesting is, and what is an easy mistake for beginning gardeners is you want to plant your seeds super deeply. But you don't. The bigger the seed, the deeper it goes. So like a seed potato, that goes a couple inches down for sure, depending on how big it is. But the littler the seed, the shallower it goes. Like you could just sprinkle them on top, like lettuce or arugula or some that are super teeny tiny. Yeah. You could legit just sprinkle it on top and then sprinkle dirt on top, or just rake your hand through and give it a little pat. It's mostly just to keep the wind from blowing it away or birds from eating it.
Sure.
Because they don't need... a lot because then that little seed just poops up and their roots go way down.
Okay.
And then speaking of roots, one other mistake is water. Water. Don't be fucking stingy. Water way more than you think. Really? Especially if it's a container, like a pot. Yeah. You're going to need to water that shit in July or August like 4 or 5 times a day.
Wow, really?
Like they'll get dry really fast. And when the soil starts to pull away from the container, then you know it's super dry. And you're going to need to water it a bunch because soil's like a sponge kind of.
Sure.
So you're watering it, it soaks up some, but a lot of it will just run through. And so you're going to need to come back, water a little more, it fills up some, and then it can start to hold it. Like you don't want it to be like, if it's a container without any drainage, you don't want just water sitting in there. That will make your plants rot. But if it has drainage or like it's in the ground, you're going to want to water it a lot. So if you water it and then go back 15 minutes later and put your finger in and it's still dry an inch down, you did not water it enough.
Sure.
So if you just water it, the top looks wet, that's not enough.
That's not enough.
Like when I worked at the garden center, kids would water the garden center in 45 minutes. They come back and be like, I'm done. Fuck you are. It should take you 3 hours. Get back out there.
Get out there.
No, it's going to take a lot longer. Yeah. And also the it's almost better to go slow and let the water soak deeper because then the roots will follow the water. So your roots can go deeper if the water is going down farther, and then there's more nutrients down there. So if you're watering really shallowy, the roots are going to stay where their resources are.
Sure.
So if you water some and then you water a little more and let it soak in and water a little more. So sometimes I'll just do like a lap around. Yeah. Or you can do irrigation, like drip irrigation. It's pretty cheap. Dripworks.org or dripworks.com. Okay. It's a drip line irrigation. It can be a little expensive, but lasts for years. It's easy to do yourself. It's easy to repair. Sure. And you can set a timer and it'll just water it for you.
Oh, that's neat.
And things like that. So if you're not getting a lot of rain, but they need a lot more water than you think, especially like tomatoes and things that are mostly water.
That makes sense. Yeah. I guess one thing that I'm sort of like starting to realize here, and that I maybe wasn't appreciating before, I mean, it sounds obvious to say, but like these plants are alive.
Yeah.
They are living, like you said, they move towards these things. They want to stay. They have to expend effort to do things. Like this whole process it's a living thing.
Yeah.
To treat it that way.
Yeah, and you also need to feed them.
Yeah.
You don't have to get super scientific about it unless you want to. So if you're wondering what your soil's made of, there's 3 different, like nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus are the 3 main things plants need to grow.
Okay.
And you can get your soil tested. The University of Minnesota does that. You can send a sample and they'll tell you what your soil makeup is. They'll tell you if you have lead or arsenic even if you want. Because guess what? A lot of city soil has lead or arsenic in your soil.
Really?
Oh, yeah, from everything that it happens in the city and it just settles into your soil.
Oh, just from like air pollution kind of rain stuff?
Yeah, or construction. A lot of stuff's backfilled. It's not actually the soil that was there. It's just filled in with dirt, not living. Soil is living. Dirt's fucking not.
Sure, yeah.
So you have to put back resources to see, like, do I need more nitrogen? Do I need more potassium? Is my soil, most of our soil here is really basic, which is fine for most of our plants, except for like blueberries, acidity.
Like a very specific.
Yeah, they need a very specific acidity. And like soil acidity is important because it's sort of like, again, like with fitness, if you are diabetic, you need a certain amount of insulin.
Right.
For your body to function.
Yeah.
pH and acidity is the same. If it's too acidic, plants will die and not thrive. Or if they need more acidity and they're not getting that, they're not getting what they need to be optimum. Yeah. To grow their optimum fruit. Huh. And so things like those nutrients are really key. So if you're not sure what to add, you're like, I don't know, I'm not going to worry about that. I don't want to even deal with that. That's more. And you just want to feed your plants just like a balanced fertilizer. So you'll see like 3 numbers on fertilizers. Yeah. NPK, nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus. And you just want like a balanced one. Have a number that's close to the same. Yeah. It almost even doesn't matter at some point. Especially if you're starting a garden from brand new, then you could just try that. Yeah. And so like there's 10, 10, 10 or 5, 5, 5. Yeah. But there's a lot of really cool fertilizers locally. There's like Twin Fin Organics. They fish invasive species and turn it into fish fertilizer. That's awesome. And it's a little smelly, but it's a great fertilizer. Yeah. And people get hung up on like, well, what should I use and how much? And again, like with compost, it's like a variety. Like when I'm planting, if it's a garden I've used before, I'll put some dry fertilizer in as I'm planting. Yeah. And then later on in a few weeks, I'll maybe water it in with a liquid fertilizer. Generally, organic's better, only because some chemically made ones can burn your plants. Burn them? Yeah. Whoa. So then it avoids that because it's really hard to overdo it with organic fertilizers. Sure. And then especially when like your fruit and veggies that you fruit and flower. Yeah. Or flower and fruit, I keep saying it the other way. When you see the flowers showing up, they're going to know they're going to start making fruit soon. They're going to need some more food to eat to make my food. Oh. I should probably fertilize it then. Because sometimes you're like, what day of May should I fertilize? Yeah. It doesn't have to be that regimented. It can be super easy. Like, oh, I'm noticing there's some flowers. And I'll just toss out a handful of dry fertilizer. Huh. There you go, friends. Yeah. Again, something's better than nothing. Yeah. Right? So I'll sprinkle it around the dirt. So what I'm hearing here, like the lesson I'm pulling out of all of this, is that like fitness and like D&D, like you brought up, it sounds like with gardening, especially food gardening, which is what I'm most interested in, people might be overthinking things a lot. Yeah. Yeah. Like it's maybe not as complex as maybe, I don't know if there's like a big gardening industry out there that makes it seem like you need all these different things in the books and the chemicals and stuff like that. You can't just like put something in the ground and usually something happens. Yeah. That's really encouraging. Yeah, and also too, like seeds last many years, so you can buy a pack of seeds and you might not use all of it. Yeah, and then they last several years if they're stored in a cool, dry place. Yeah, they're stored in a place you can use the same for several seasons. Storage is something I want to talk to you about. Yeah, a little bit actually, because one of my favorite crops to grow is potatoes. Oh yeah. How do you store them for a long period of time without them getting all eldritch? Funky. Yeah, there's different tricks that people have done where they'll use like laundry baskets and hay or sand even. So there's airflow going through. You might want to Google it because they have better tips sometimes. But if it's in a cool, dry place where there's ventilation, where it's not just them in their little warm environment getting funky. So like gym socks, don't leave those gym socks in the bag. Air that shit out. Sure, Potatoes like it kind of musty? Yeah, they like a cool, dry place.
Yeah. I mean,
So
they like as in like they're gonna like stretch out if it gets kind of moist in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
keep them dry and they'll keep.
Yeah, and those little spots where the little things grow out, the little roots, those are called eyes.
Yeah.
Right, potato eyes. And my fun tip I love giving with the kids at school for gardening is you want to plant your potatoes so that the eyes can see out. Because that's the plant that will turn into leaves. And
no kidding.
And so you want to plant your potatoes with the eyes facing.
I got something I want you to see real. I buy potatoes, and then I found out that I was storing them wrong because I was storing them next to onions.
Yeah.
And that makes them fucking
sprout.
Nuts. Yeah. And then I was like, I'm gonna just hold on to these.
Yes, you can grow them. Totally plant those.
I can plant these?
Yes, you could cut this in half.
Yeah.
Usually you want like 2 or 3 eyes. So like here's an eye that hasn't sprouted yet. You could cut this in half.
Yeah.
What's it called? Chitting, where you cut it and you let it dry for a couple days because then the place you cut it forms its own skin. And then that helps prevent soil diseases and stuff from going in.
Sure.
So you can cut it in half here. So for listeners, Rob has a cute potato and it's got like 2 sprouts on one side and another sprout and a not yet sprouted eye on the other. So just cut this in half, let it dry for a day or 2 till it forms like a dry skin, and then you can legit totally plant this with
See, I thought this was like some kind of grossness on it, dude.
No, it's just a plant doing its plant thing. It's trying to grow because plants will always try to grow. That's the other thing, that you don't have to be successful. Plants are going to always try to grow. They have everything in their seed coat that they need to germinate and sprout and grow, even the potato in your cupboard.
I was like, it's some kind of like eldritch. It looks like Cthulhu.
Yeah. Again, that's the part that will leaf out and flower.
Sure.
And then once your potatoes have flowered and they start to die back, don't think you've killed your plant. That's just the potatoes are done growing.
That's what
you can leave them in the dirt too, because the dirt can store it. So you can until you want to use them. Yeah. They can just chill in the dirt.
Oh, no kidding.
They can just hang out. Oh, because they're just doing their thing.
Just being potatoes.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that's important is like crop rotation. Okay. So you don't want to grow the same thing in the same place every year. Right. Because if you do that, it uses up those same nutrients and resources. Sure. But also if there's pests, then everything that those pests need and want is concentrated in that space. Huh. But if it goes away, then it's not like there's like potato bugs or potato beetles and things like that. Yeah. And they're going to find that smell easier because it's been there every year. And so there's a Native American, the Ojibwe or Dakota way of gardening called the Three Sisters Garden. Yes. And so the cool thing is so sister corn grows to be a long stalk that the beans can grow on. And then the beans have that as a trellis so that corn supports them. And then those sisters help feed the corn because beans bring nitrogen back into the soil. If you ever notice little nodes or white nodes on the roots of bean plants, that's actually like the nitrogen going back into the soil. And then sister squash helps provide shade. Yeah. And shades out and prevents weeds and helps keep the soil moist. And so they have their own whole thing. So they're working together. And so it's kind of the same with crop rotation, like nightshades, like potatoes, eggplants, tomatoes, those sorts of things you want to plant in different places every year. Sure. And then same with like corn. If you had corn somewhere or something else, then you'd want to put beans because they all take things and add things to soil differently. So if you're moving it around, you're constantly changing your soil and you're bettering your soil versus depleting it. Like that's what caused the Dust Bowl. That you had corn and corn and corn and corn and corn. And
monoculture, just like
monoculture, it's just because there wasn't anything left. There wasn't any nutrients left. There wasn't any stuff to hold the dirt. So that's important. Crop rotation is important. You can also stagger warm and cool season plants. Like right now, it's way too cold to plant like your tomatoes. The thing I hate is that commercial garden centers, especially, already have like basil, tomatoes, all this stuff out. You're going to be buying those plants like 5 different times if you plant them now. It is too cold. Basil's going to go, it's under 50 degrees. I'm dying now. Yeah. It's not a cold weather plant. Basil's like a tropical plant? Yeah, it's a tropical plant. Yeah, yeah. So like things you can plant now in Minnesota right now, peas, radishes, beets, a lot of root veggies. Carrots like it warmer. Yeah. And they take a long time to germinate.
Central American crop.
Yeah. Yeah. And some potatoes are earlier now. You could plant some potatoes now.
Can I show this guy in a bucket today?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
Fun. Yeah. And so you can plant that stuff now. And then a lot of times, too, like radishes, they don't take very long. In a month, they'll be gone. And you can plant beans there. Or your lettuce. The other tip, too, is a lot of people don't know, like, if you plant lettuce, you're not going to be planting it just one time. Yeah. Lettuce can get really bitter, and it's not a crop that grows all season. It's same with cilantro. Like, if you want a lot of cilantro or a lot of lettuce or leafy greens, anytime they start to taste at all bitter, cut them out, eat them, and plant new. So there's something called succession planting that you can also Google, but the U of M website talks about it too. So succession planting is where you plant some now, and then in like 2 or 3 weeks you'll plant more. So if you want lettuce like all year,
like in waves.
Yeah, you plant it in waves. So you'll plant like 2 or 3 rows of lettuce now, and in a couple weeks plant some more, and a couple weeks plant some more, and then you're not getting all your eggs in one basket. You're not having it all right now. Then shit, what am I gonna do with all this lettuce? It's not like you can freeze it. Yeah. Whereas like with edamame, you can, if you love edamame, you can grow edamame here in Minnesota.
Really?
So yeah, plant it in May, like closer to after Mother's Day is usually warm enough. Yeah. Especially in your cinder block garden bed, your soil will be warm enough because soil temperature is important.
Hear that?
Yeah, soil temperature is important. So you can get a soil thermometer, and if it's 50, 60 degrees, plant your edamame, and they're just these little cute shrubs, and they grow edamame pods. And we could have a whole other podcast on just preserving your harvest.
That'd be a whole other episode.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Back in like August or something like that.
Yeah, you could like flash freeze some stuff, like you blanch it, so you put it in boiling water for a certain amount of time, and that helps kill any diseases, but it doesn't cook it. And then you can freeze it, and then you've got your own little bags of edamame all fucking winter. Yeah. So you
buy like stuff from like Aldi or whatever, if they have like edamame pods there that are not frozen.
Sometimes some. Well, they've probably been boiled, blanch them to make them safe, like to prevent any pathogens or anything. But I don't know, it'd be worth trying. Yeah. But they also sell edamame seeds in like grocery store things or online. Like
if I bought like a bag of just like dry beans, like
you totally just plant dry beans.
Really?
Yeah.
Is there like a really good bean for this type of environment that we have?
Pinto beans are good, edamame, green beans, almost any kind of fava beans, lima beans, a lot of the dry soup beans you can grow. Sometimes things are treated so that they don't sprout or germinate. So if you're wanting to plant your potatoes or garlic that you are from the store, get organic. Because because a lot of places treat them with chemicals so they don't sprout, and they're more serviceable and they last longer on the shelves. So it's another great reason to grow your own food because you know what's in it. So there's not the pesticides or chemicals and things that have been treated with your food. Yeah. So some people have allergies to some foods, and it's not actually the food, it's the pesticide on it.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, sometimes it's actually the chemicals that were used to grow it that is causing the allergens, but they think it's the food because that's what they always, the reaction they get.
When they eat it.
And yes, there's food allergies, but also a lot of stuff is treated with things to prevent it or to make it have a longer shelf life. So you're knowing where your food comes from, you know what's in your food. Also, too, if you think about what you're putting in your mouth, what did that do to travel to get to your mouth? Where did it come from, and what are all the steps that it took to travel to get there? A lot of times, like I was vegetarian for a long time, not necessarily for animal rights, but environmentally. Sure. Beef takes so much water to grow cows. Wow. And there's a lot of recalls because of salmonella, because guess what's downfield from the beef cows? Your lettuce and romaine fields.
Really?
And so a lot of the E. coli recalls on romaine lettuce is because it's contaminated from cow poop up the road.
What?
Yeah, so if you want a lot of romaine lettuce and you don't want to worry about E. coli and stuff with spinach getting recalls,
easy to grow.
It's super easy to grow. You can grow it in your house. You don't even need to have it in a garden.
Dang.
You can just
I can grow it myself if I really want.
Yeah.
I probably won't though.
Right? So there's a lot of food safety things. Environmentally, your food's not traveling. It's right in your backyard. So it's a closed looped system. If you're feeding it to your chickens or you're feeding it to your compost, and your compost goes back in your garden. And a lot of cities love this because it's a closed loop system. There's way less garbage because you're composting that food waste. There's way less packaging because you're growing it in your backyard. So the plastics involved. So if you really think on like a micro scale of where your food's coming from and what's happening, the chemicals and things made that are used to produce it that go into the water. Then it travels. Then there's all the fossil fuels getting it to you. Right. The packaging, the plastic, the packaging that takes to get to you, all these different stuff besides just transportation. Like that plastic is there forever now. So you can recycle a lot of those plastics too. Like the Hennepin County, the Brooklyn Center Recycling Center takes plastic bags.
Really?
So like your salad bag, your bread bag, your produce bags, all that stuff, your Target bags, they can recycle them.
Wow.
So you can drop them off for free.
I did want to talk a little bit about, because we're getting right
close to an hour.
Now, I just want to talk a teeny bit about chickens.
Yeah.
Keeping animals, because I know you have chickens. Like I say, the first person I know who had chickens, then Rachel did. I've seen things pop up about keeping other types of like stock with like people are saying like keep ducks.
Yeah.
People are saying keep goats.
I know in St. Paul you can have goats.
Really?
Get permits for goats. There used to be someone who lived near the Trader Joe's that had goats. Because you can get milking goats. You can look at your city ordinances and see. Yeah, and like ducks are really fun. Like I know I think personally they're really cute, but they're much messier. Because ducks, they love water, and they don't have to have water in the winter like you'd think that they would. They don't need to have like a whole pool or access to that. That's how they clean themselves. But as long as they have like a deep enough they'll need a different type of water than chickens, because ducks will actually eat their food and they need the water to swallow it. So ducks will scoop food and then water and then swallow it, whereas chickens don't do that.
Right.
That's why their bill is the way that it is, because it evolved to match how they eat their food. And so you're scooping the food, they're scooping the water, so their water gets dirtier faster, but they're also taking in a lot of water, and they have really watery poop.
Sure, that makes sense.
They can't live with chickens, so it's just something to think about. Like if that doesn't bother you and you're fine with, like, you can put lots of straw down too, that helps absorb that moisture. You can compost that then. It makes good compost. If you're composting your animal, your duck and chicken waste, it does need to be composted for like 2 years. Or make sure or you can put it on other things that aren't your food, but just to be food safe. Sure. You can get a compost thermometer, and one of my favorite brands has this really awesome saying. Okay. Yeah, it's like, how hot is your pile? So like these really long thermometers are like 2-3 feet long. So you can put it into your compost pile to see how hot is it getting in the middle. Okay. And you want it at a certain temperature so it kills off certain pathogens and it kills off certain weed seeds. Okay. So some with your home compost too, be super picky what you're putting in there. Don't put in weeds that you don't want to come back. Don't put in your tomatoes or squash or things that have fungus or nightshades or things that could cause pests. Take that to the yard waste site. Sure. So your at-home garden, coffee grounds, tea, like any food waste stuff that's not oil or cooked or whatever. So be picky about that. But if you can compost it, it gets to make sure it's a certain temperature for so long. You can chat with your neighbor across the fence. How hot's your pile, Rob? Right.
So composting. So we have a compost bin. The city takes it away. If I wanted to make a compost thing for my garden that I can use for my own food scraps, like what does that entail? Like what's that project look like?
So you find a spot that's convenient to get to, especially in the winter, because it's frozen. And it'll just sort of hang. And if you're composting in quotes correctly, it's not going to be stinky. So you need a really good mix of brown materials and green materials. If your compost is smelly, there's a couple things happening. It's anaerobic, which means it's not any oxygen. So you want to turn it. And that doesn't have to get super complicated. That could just be like your kid poking it with sticks, getting air.
The old-fashioned way.
Yeah, you don't have. It doesn't have to be complicated. You could get a pitchfork or a shovel and turn it. There's fancy compost turners that look cool.
Totally, I've seen like the rolly barrel things.
Yeah, and it's largely to help keep that oxygen going. Okay. So keeping it a little wet and keeping it turning. So you can just toss stuff in and let it sit and not do anything, and it will still compost. But if you want compost to turn around fast, then the more you turn it, the more it will break down faster. And if it's super dry, you're going to need to water your compost. Sure. Because it's hard for it to break down without water. It's just dry and doing nothing. The organisms aren't working as well together. You can add things to it to get it going. So that's, again, where leaves are super helpful. Like maybe just rake your leaves towards your compost pile. Or I have bags of leaves in my shed near my compost because I put them in the compost. So I had neighbors when we first bought our house who were like, what is this girl doing? Yeah. I had a tree cut down and drilled holes in the stump so I could plant mushrooms. I had plugs, mushroom dowels. And so I think our old guy across the street thought that's how he thought I was drilling my stump out. He's like, you can rent a stump grinder.
It's going to take forever.
I'm like, oh, I'm planting mushrooms. And they were like,
that's actually more weird. Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And then I'm like bagging. I save if I'm buying. Is that me? No.
My neighbor's car alarm is going off. You can probably hear that on the recording.
But so if I'm buying bags of compost, a lot of times I'll save those bags because then in the fall, they're super sturdy. You can recycle them at the recycling center if you want. But I save them because then I'll just scoop leaves into them and then I'll toss them in my shed. Or I'll stick them in the outside even behind my compost bin. They get wet, but I want them to break down. So that's fine. So you lift a wet bag of leaves into your bin.
So in the wintertime, it doesn't get it's not like a frozen hunk of ice or whatever?
Yeah. But so you can, my neighbors also thought I was being weird. Like, you can't send those into the yard place. It's not a paper, it has to be a paper bag. I'm like, yep, I know. Like, I'm just saving my leaves for my compost bin. Like, I'm pretty sure I weirded out. I mean, they're all very lovely now that we know each other. But I'm pretty sure they think I
use an adjustment period.
Stuff. Yeah, they're like, you can't use plastic bags for the yard waste. I'm like, I'm keeping it. It's to help me save it and keep it dry.
Right, yeah. I'm doing this for the earth.
And then I let it blow into the corners of my fencing for the bugs.
Sure.
So they're like, yeah. So yeah, but so it doesn't have to be a huge amount of stuff, but like, so no meat, no bones, anything like that. Okay. No animal, like your cat poop or whatever, dog poop shouldn't go in there.
So anything you wouldn't want to eat.
Yeah.
Don't put it in there.
That's a really good way to think of it.
Okay.
And so if you're putting in layers, like brown, greens, like food scraps, leaves, you can even shred up, like my sister didn't have enough leaves in her yard, and she used to keep her toilet paper tubes and paper towel tubes and give her kid them when they were really little, shred them up,
rip it up,
and he'd toss it in the bin, and that adds brown material and it breaks down super fast. And, or like the brown paper that sometimes comes in packages too, shred that all up, just tear it. Yeah, and you don't have to do it perfectly. If you notice there's a big chunk of it, just slice it with a pitchfork and flip it over and be like, oh, that might be here a little while more than I want. And the smaller the pieces, the faster it breaks down. But that doesn't. It's only if you super care if you have compost you can use next year. Yeah, it might take a few seasons if you just let it sit and do its thing.
That's so easy.
And if it gets stinky, just add more brown stuff and turn it. And then in a day or so.
How big of like a plot do I need to like build like a fence for it or something? Or?
No, there also a lot of cities have really cheap compost bins. So we have like a 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot or 3 by 3 by 3 with a lid. Yeah, it's a cube.
Yeah.
And it was a kit. I got it from the city. I got it from Hennepin County, and I picked it up at the same recycling place. So it's $50-$60 at the time. It has hardware cloth, so not chicken wire because that's really bendy. Hardware cloth is the little square. It looks like chicken wire, but it's little squares. It's sturdier. And that's been hanging on our yard for many years. And I just turn it. And then I ended up getting a second one when our neighbors moved. I was like, can I have your compost bin?
Yeah.
And they were like, sure. So like, so I hauled it over.
That's awesome.
But it's pretty easy. You could just buy some hardware cloth and use lawn stakes, like those heavy duty green T-poles.
Oh yeah.
And make a circle and put it in, and it doesn't have to be super complicated.
Animals don't get at it or whatever?
Generally not.
Really? They don't care?
No, they don't care.
Huh.
Yeah. So.
Babe, I have a new project.
Again, like just start small, like make a space. You can just get a square bin from the city, and then they come in a bundle and you just screw it together, but it's mostly put together, like the hardware cloth stapled on. You just screw the 4 or 5 pieces together and put the lid on.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so much more accessible than I sort of thought it would be. I thought all of this, like, I guess I thought it would be harder.
Yeah.
I thought there'd be more to it.
Yeah, and if you're not doing a very big garden, then you can just buy plants, because like some things like in Minnesota we have such a short growing season. If you're a new gardener, don't start tomatoes or peppers or those summer things from seeds. Greenhouses and where you're buying those from, those were started a month or 2 ago, and they're already a growing plant by the time you put it in the ground, just because we have such a short growing season. So, and if you're not having a huge garden, just buy 6 plants. It's going to be way more cost effective in the end. Yeah. Because, and you can start your seeds indoors, and that's a whole other fun thing and a whole separate podcast. But you don't have to just go buy some. And so do your cool weather plants first. Most garden centers have lettuce and herbs and stuff out now.
Sure.
And then a month later, don't buy any. If you're going to be tempted, don't buy that tomato plant unless you want to live in your house for another month, because I'm not going to plant any tomatoes until the end of May.
End of May.
Yeah. Okay. Unless, global warming maybe a week sooner, but in general.
We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. And in the city, there's some residual heat too, where it's a little warmer in the city than out in more rural areas or suburbs. And you can extend your growing season. Like you can make little greenhouses really cheaply. You can get some PVC poles, like 1-inch PVC poles, and put one in a corner, stretch it to the opposite corner. Yeah. The second one, put that in the corner, switch it to the opposite corner. Yeah. Get some super thick painter's plastic.
Like a bivouac for it.
And you probably have some random clamps or bricks. Set it down, and that will help heat your soil and heat your plants, and you can extend your season at either end of our spring and fall.
That's really cool. I do want to, we got to wrap up here, but I want to ask Leslie, do you have any nuggets of wisdom here? Any last little druidic pieces of #nature check to make for our people here?
I'm trying to think of what the best, the U of M website is really amazing. Yeah. It's a great first place to start if you just have questions on that. And also, don't plant what you're not going to eat. You're not going to care, put effort in. Like some people think a garden has to have radishes. I fucking hate radishes. Sure. Some people, or you see stuff, you're like, oh, I should do this. Just plant what you're going to eat.
Yeah.
Versus thinking of what you should do. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's just like some like customers I'd had that like, I should do this. But that just gets hard. But also it's okay to fail. Like it's okay. Yeah. I've been gardening for forever, and there's always something that happens weird because Mother Earth's Mother Earth. Nature's gonna nature. There might be a frost and it's gonna kill the flowers on your fruit tree, and you won't get any apples. Like that happens in orchards. Like that's legit just part of what happens.
That's act of God stuff.
And it's not your fault, and you didn't do anything wrong, or so don't be hard on yourself. It's sort of like with fitness. Like you're gonna have days where you meet those goals, and you're gonna have days where I'm like, I'm here for the fucking pizza party. Let's go. And that's okay. Like I think it was you that said just don't do 2 in a row, right? Like don't make the same mistake twice, kind of thing. Like okay, if this happened today, try something different tomorrow. It's the same with gardening. Like you're gonna have some fails, and you just need to not take it personally because a lot of it's out of your control. And you're at least doing it.
Would you say let it grow?
Yes, let's do it. I'm trying to think some fun bog moss things. I'm scared. Oh, I had a question for you, really fast.
Yeah, dude.
I had a question for you. I had it at the very beginning because I knew I would almost forget.
Okay.
How's your road to 200 going?
Badly.
No one ever asks, and I was like, I want to make sure I ask, how's the 200 going?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think last time I weighed in, I was like 186.
Okay.
Yeah, which is just where I live. Yeah, so I've given up on that, but I'm fine with
right
that
on.
now. Yeah.
And then, if you had to classify yourself as a D&D class right now, at this moment, not what you want to be, what class or multi-class are you actually right now? I would be Druid Barbarian. I would be a multi-class because I feel like
definitely.
I'm either like loving nature or wanting to rage. So I'm definitely like I'm in that Druid Barbarian realm.
Definitely.
So what class or multi-class are you currently in?
If I do,
not as much.
That is what I want to be because that's a little bit. Yeah, if I had to be, probably Paladin, is what I would be looking at because I just want to like help people and lift people up, and that's kind of like what my job, what I'm good at, anyways. Awesome. And I'm strong and charismatic, I guess. So I got that going for me too. I
was just like, this would be fun to chat about.
I like that. Yeah. Because what I would tell people, I want to be like a ranger or a fighter or something like that.
Right. Like that's not what your hopes and dreams are, but like, what would you, like, you have to sort of self-reflect, and that's
okay, do it right now.
Yeah. And also gardening too. I love weeding because that's the rage of like, it's also very good for ADD.
It really is.
Gardening it gives you a focus, a sense of accomplishment, and that was another thing I wanted to.
It's a great exercise in like delayed gratification too, like the best. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really helpful for mental health. Gardening is because you're getting outdoors, you're getting the vitamin D. That's my nugget. It's like wear sunscreen.
Yeah, for sure. Call that vitamin G for gardening.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I gotta close out with the thingy here. This has been the RF Fitness Podcast. Yes, I'm available for online coaching. To find out if it's right for you, head to rffitness.net. That's rffitness.net and scroll all the way to the bottom of that page to see what kind of coaching I offer and see if it's right for you. You can fill out the client application and hit join the party to jump into our community Discord server for free. Theme music is Funk AF by Everett Allman, distributed by YouTube Studios. Thanks for listening, and as always, keep questing. Yay! Hell yeah, dude. Awesome.
It's so fun.